And, all right. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. If you'll stand with me to say the pledge. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastmont,
He's absent.
Smith, Mayor Ford,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is the approval of minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting for May 7th. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Are there any questions, comments, additions, deletions, subtractions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. The motion passes. Finance Director's report. Can we start with a motion for approval of the bills, please?
So moved.
Is there a second, please? Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson,
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
Trustee Dickin,
Aye.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Eastmont,
He's not here.
Oh,
Not here.
I apologize.
I think
Motion
he-
carries.
Yeah, I think he would be fine with that. Thank you very much. Thank you. This evening, the treasurer's report, please. Our treasurer is with us, as well as our representative from Morgan Stanley. JP Morgan, good Lord. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah.
I'll be very quick and turn it over to my.
Oh, Hal,
Microphone, please.
so it's caught on the recording. That's the important part. So yes, at the table would be good. Thank you, Hal.
I'll be brief because everything that I normally would report and give you the update, Mike's going to go over in both our portfolio yields, availabilities, diversification and reports. So it will be, I'll let him do that from his prepared report, which I think you guys have copies of.
There was a copy in the packet, and I believe he's handed out hard copy as well. And we have it on the screen.
Right. So I'll defer my normal information to Mike's report.
Thank you so much. Mike Carney, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please, from JP Morgan.
Good evening. My name is Mike Carney with JP Morgan. I am part of a fixed income team based out of Chicago that's been fortunate to work with the Village for over 10 years on the fixed income portfolio.
Closer. Yeah, and make sure the little green light's on.
Okay,
You're being recorded.
great. So what I thought, I just had some deck to overview that we kind of go by page by page, and then leave it open for some questions and answers at the end there. So on the first page of our deck talks about our team here. There's a team of 3 of us, been with JP Morgan for over 10 years. We have over 50 years institutional fixed income experience as a team. And then as a firm, we are a leader in most fixed income asset classes, and as well as a primary dealer in U.S. Treasuries. Moving on to slide 2, coming off of the pandemic, rates were historically low. So this is our interest rate forecast. So this gives us an idea of not only of when we make investment decisions on behalf of the Village, where we're at today, we also look at where we're going in the future. So you can see in terms of the interest rate forecast, rates were low in 2020, rates moved up in 22, also in 23, and you can see currently where we're at. So where I would just direct you on the top, interest rate forecast. On the left axis, it will have the maturity dates, 2-year, 5-year, 10 years. I would just start with that 2-year Treasury, just give you an idea where the Treasury market is on the 2-year maturity. You can see it's yielding about a 487 yield currently. And then as our economist looks at where we think rates are going and possible slowdown in Fed cuts, you can go out to March of next year. You can see we're thinking in that 390 range. So we think rates will be slowly moving down over the course of later this year and all of next year. Moving on to slide 3. Obviously these are public funds. Whenever we discuss public funds, we're always thinking kind of 3 principles there. Number 1 being safety. Number 2, liquidity. If something comes up, can we sell the Treasury? Do we have access to the funds? And then number 3, yield. So those are the 3 principles that we follow. Also, those are in the investment policy statements for the Village. I thought I'd touch a little bit on right now where the current markets are in terms of rates. If you look at this snapshot, this is just a short-term investment snapshot of where current investment rates are at. Everything is kind of based off of the U.S. Treasuries, which are the safest investments and also available within your investment portfolio, which you currently hold. But just to give you an idea, if you look in the left axis there, you can see the terms going out short-term, 3, 6, 9 months out to a year. And you can see the yields curve is a little bit inverted, but you can see well above 5% given current rates right now. And then if you move to the right along that table, you can see commercial paper and corporate bonds. Those are ultimately backed by the issuers of those investments, but you can see you can pick up a little bit of additional yield in those investments as you go out 6, 9, 12 months. Moving on to slide 6. This is a longer term comparison, so it's out 1 to 3 years. But what you can see there is the market is always forward looking and that the yield curve is inverted. So if you look on the left side of the chart, you can see Canada 5% range. But if you see it, the yield curve dipping down to the right, you can see the yield curve is inverted, and there's lower yields the farther you go out in the yield curve. And part of that reason would be is that people think the Fed is going to lower rates later this year and next year. And then the same thing on the table there, you will have the term of maturities on the left axis, 1, 2, and 3 years. You can see where U.S. Treasuries, the 1-year Treasury is yielding 5.12. The 2-year Treasury is 4.77, and the 3-year is 4.57. So you can see it's inverted on the yield curve there, but also, again, if you move away from Treasuries, you take on slightly more risk. You can see you can book additional yield in corporates and also taxable municipals. So far, so good? Okay. I thought I'd just touch base right now of currently where the portfolio is here on slide 7. This is how it has a nice allocation model where we're currently invested. You can see on top there, you can see us as far as municipals. You can see that as 12%, credit quality A or better. You can see U.S. corporate bonds, 24%, credit quality A or better. Brokered CDs at 30%. Again, those are FDIC insured. So credit quality, those are FDIC insured. You can see the allocations to treasuries and agencies there at 16 and 9%. And then you see a 9% allocation U.S. government money market that has daily liquidity at 9% as well. And then you can, the bottom there just has some information about the overall asset size at $11.432 million. Average yield to maturity of 4.76, and an average life of under 1 year at 0.92 years. So we like the allocation model that we have developed. I think it's working really well. Moving on to slide 8, this is just a little bit of analysis of the number of holdings. So inside the portfolio holdings, you can see there are 25 holdings. If you look on the top left, total holding lot holdings, and then the top right, it just has, again, that yield on the overall maturity of 4.76. Moving on to slide 9. So part of our thought process over the last couple of years is, as we were working with our economists and our team, we knew the Fed was going to raise rates in 2022. We wanted to stay short. 2023, the same process. We knew the Fed was going to be aggressive. They want to put their foot on the throat of inflation. They were going to continue to raise rates. So what we want to do is keep the portfolio overall very short. And you can see kind of this is a tranched out by maturities. And you can see less than a year, we have 66% of the portfolio maturing within a year. So the thought process there is now rates are high. We're looking at cuts at the end of the year. What this allows us to do is book an overall higher quality yield for the portfolio. That was the thought process there. And just some overall observations on slide 10. Second bullet point there, again, like I was trying to say, 66% rolling off in less than a year. This will allow us to capture a higher yield on the overall portfolio. And then the money market balance, that's right now, that has daily liquidity, that's paying 4.93%. And then moving on to slide 11, we're kind of at a unique time here. So inflation's been kind of relatively sticky here. I think if you looked in the beginning of this year, you had a lot of analysts calling for 5 or 6 rate cuts this year. We're approaching June here next week. We don't see that happening. So I think we're in the camp that we see kind of a 3 cuts overall starting in July of this year, and kind of this soft landing scenario with rates higher for longer. So how that allows us, again, to affect the portfolio is as the bonds roll off, as we have funds liquid in the money market, just allow us to book an overall higher yield for the portfolio. And again, in terms of these forecasts will change, and if they do, the forward interest rate, our interest rate forecast allows us, is one of the tools we use to make sure the portfolio is structured the way we want it to be. And in terms of overall credit quality between the tax municipals, corporates, brokered CDs, which are FDIC insured, treasuries and agencies, and the money market, I think we have a great credit quality of the portfolio. So with that said, I wanted to say thank you for the partnership over the last 10 years here, and just wanted to see if we had any questions for us.
Trustee Clayton, please.
You probably said this, but as you were going through it, if we have 66% of the portfolio coming due soon, what's our strategy with regard to term at this point? Are we continuing to go short, or are we looking to go long? Even with the inverted yield curve, we're still above where we might be long-term.
Yeah, I think that's going to be developed with Hal and the team, that we're going to deploy kind of into the latter. So we'll still have some bonds that will, but to your point, we'll look where we can to add a little bit farther out in the yield curve to be able to go ahead and book that yield, with the idea that rates might be going lower. But at the same time, we don't want to deploy too much of the assets that farther out. We want it to be well thought out as we do that. But to your point, we want to book some yield right now because we think rates will be going down. So the liquidity and the investments rolling off will allow us to do that. You bet.
Any other trustees have any? Trustee Hollander, please.
Actually, this is more to Bruce. Does any of our potential future acquisitions by the village affect what we would request of how this next tranche of investment would be set up as far as maturity?
Yes. And the mayor was talking with me about it earlier. You just want to keep what you need for down payments and purchase price and things like that, which is, say, October, available to you without incurring any kind of penalty. So you need some amount, like in a money market or short term. And that's one of the things I think that the staff will be talking about.
If I can add to that, we just had a very quick conversation. And I think we've talked about this, we need to compare our cash flows and cash demands with what the portfolio looks like. Money market funds allow us not to sell an individual security. It's much freer liquidity, and it's much more immediate. And we do have exposure in the money market fund right now, which is good, and they're a government, so it's of the same high quality. The question becomes, again, what are our needs, and when do those maturities actually hit? Maybe if they hit, they go into, and this is a conversation we want to have with our advisor and with our treasurer. But yes, that's all part of it.
So the presentation tonight has not taken yet that into account. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct. Hal, would you like to add on to that, please?
Yeah, I'll address that specifically, is that coincidentally or ironically, there is the money market funds available for what might be done in that regard. But I really want to just go through the process and the relationship. So, because Mike and his team, Danielle and everybody, Dave, are, I think, terrific. They will give me a heads up, sometimes hours, sometimes days, on the maturities in the market. And then we will look through different options, and I will present the questions to them as the security of what we're buying, the ratings of what we're buying, and the portfolio mix. How does this weight us in our balance? Because we have rules in our investment plan and everything else. So, Henry, what it really comes down to is taking the pulse of what the village's plans are with Mike's and the budgeting and everything else to determine what liquidity we need. I convey it to them. And currently we do have a good turnover of investments. I mean, a combination of luck and good calls going back 3-4 years ago when we were earning 0.25% have allowed us to take advantage of higher yields where we didn't have to sit on the sideline with those low yields. But as you notice, there's a good percentage coming due, which will allow us to be flexible with keeping it available for village needs or investing it. But I think Mike's point was we might be looking at longer terms to capture the rates that are here now that might not be there in 12 months or 18 months. But the key is going to be determining that liquidity need, and we'll find out from you guys in the plans what we need to do there, and we'll coordinate it with them.
Yeah, to you, and I would just follow up with that, like Hal and Chris and the team have been great to work with. I think we always start with the idea of clear cash flow needs, before we invest these funds, do we need these funds? So we develop a plan with Hal, with Chris, and then we want to stay within our allocation model of the municipals, the brokered CDs, the treasuries, the money market. So it's been a great partnership, and Hal's been very helpful to kind of give us those cash flow needs. We'll go out to the investment universe, find the highest quality items out there that fit your policy stipulations, and then deploy them into the portfolio.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We
Yeah, we've enjoyed the partnership,
appreciate your good work.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
And thank you to our treasurer, who's not paying attention. Thank you. I know. And a big thank you to our treasurer for his guidance and his monitoring of our investments. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Before we leave the finance, I
yes,
think, do you want to talk about the audit?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well,
We'll go back to our finance director. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, but I'm looking at the trees and, I know about the weather report, so I'm a little hyper right now. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Director Vasquez, please.
I will be brief. A quick update on the status of our audits. We did receive a draft of the audit late on Friday, and we're starting the review process. This draft of the audit has already gone through their quality assurance department, so it's already further than the draft that we had received at a later point last year. So we're making good progress, staying on point, because my intention is to have the final version presented to the board at the second meeting in June.
Thank you. Trustee Clayton, please.
I just want to add that this has gone extraordinarily smoothly, and it's primarily due to the efforts of Tony and Moses, and it's a real change from where we were in the past.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate those comments, and I know our director does too. Thank you. Okay, now we'll slow it down a little bit. Next on the agenda, Director of Community Services report, status of the Saunders Road project, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So the work on the Saunders Road project is essentially complete, with the exception that the contractor's having a little bit of difficulty finding some of the native plantings to match some of the plant life that had to be removed in order to do some of the trenching that was required to put in the pipes. But other than that, the restoration work is essentially in place. It may not fully be growing at this point, but we will monitor that through the next couple of months. There will be monies withheld to make sure that the seed blankets actually come to fruition and everything gets restored. So we will be monitoring that. But other than these small areas of the native plantings, everything is completed. For the 2024 roadway program, it is moving this week into its final phase, which is the crack filling. They were hoping to start that work today. I'm not so sure that they got much, if anything, done. Unfortunately, that work is heavily weather dependent because the road section, the cross section, the joint in the crack has to be relatively dry for the rubberized material to get in there and actually adhere to the roadway. So as the weather goes, it'll get done. They were anticipating getting it done this week. My guess is it'll be probably by the end of next week, and that project will be taken off of our list. And then the only other thing I have is administrative adjudication. There was a real big buildup for the case that was heard last Thursday. This is a particular case where a renovation on a house, development team bought the house on Woodland Lane, and it's been a real eyesore to the neighbors for several years. Through the adjudication process, we spent about 2.5 hours crafting an agreement that would require all the current violations to be brought into compliance. with the building code as it's related to the project site itself by mid-June. And all the exterior work, including the siding, the windows, the roofing, pavement sections, sidewalks, new lawn, the whole cleanup, to be done no later than mid-August. And then after that, they'll finish the project as they need to. They're anxious to get this building finished and sold, and we're anxious to help them do that to a point. But we need them to step up to the plate and actually do the work. We were also able to craft a payment plan. They did not pay for the fines and the court costs the first time around, but in accordance with this agreement, those fines and court costs will get paid within 18 days when the bank will give a first draw. So I think we're settled. I've got some high hopes, but I'm very cautious with regard to it. We will monitor it on a regular basis. And that's all I have, unless someone has questions.
Okay, this next, oh, I'm sorry, does anybody, trustee, okay. Next item on, under your report is a report on the Stormwater Management Committee. If you could
Right back
bring
at me.
us up to date there. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor, for putting together a lot of history on the status of this whole project, which has its roots way back in 2011, when the village engineer actually presented the initial report, which was entitled Hydrologic and Hydraulic Analysis Report for the Thorngate Creek, Caney Creek, and the tributary areas. So recently, or I should say within the last year and a half, I think we all know that GHA has been working on a study which was presented to this board back in, I believe, November of 2023. The Stormwater Committee and staff had a lot of questions as a result of that particular meeting and presentation that was here. GHA has responded to most of those issues and questions, but we still have a list. And I know that there's a small packet as part of the board packet, or a small report as part of the board packet tonight. It lists 5 different questions. There may be more or less than, there may be more questions than that have to be looked at. But essentially, these are the key components which we're still working with GHA to get some better information on, so that we can have more support on how we can prioritize projects if we decide to move forward. Looking for alternative solutions, something other than just, concrete pipe in the ground. Will that include maybe difference in recreating the terrain? Will it mean, cleaning culverts to get a better water flow, quicker flow, more volume, things like that? Something above and beyond just putting pipes in the ground. I know it's a real good engineering solution, but it comes at quite a cost. So we're looking to see how we can do this in a way that we can afford to budget this over the next few years. And that's the other piece we're looking at, is how do we actually manage that cost versus the monies that we have coming in. So we'll continue to work with GHA. This again is just a status report, and we hope to come back to you soon with something that we can call final.
Trustee Hollander, please.
Maybe it's my version, but I don't see a report in the packet I received.
I was going to ask the same question. It's not in the packet.
So you may be referring to something, but I have not seen it.
My apologies. I thought that this was embedded in the packet.
No.
You'll get it as a result after this meeting then. I'm sorry, I thought it was in the packet as well.
Then I would like to hold off on accepting that until we've had an opportunity to review it.
It's a report, and we're happy to do that. We can certainly put it on the agenda next.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to let anybody have the one copy that I have with me tonight, if you want an early advance on that. Not that it helps you, but nonetheless.
Well, I mean, we received a draft, but I never saw a final. And I have significant concerns, and that's why I want to make certain that it's presented to the board in whatever final form, you wish.
Okay.
We'll look into it. You will get that, and we'll put it back on the agenda. It was sent, the first time it was sent around to the committee for comments, and Henry, I noted your comments, but didn't receive others, so we put it into, so we could present it to the board. Certainly, we didn't want the committee to see it for the first time in the board packet. So, okay, moving on then. Was there any other questions for our director? Okay. Moving on, consultants report, our attorney's report, please.
The fire district received our revised term sheet. We increased some of the suggested cost sharing on stormwater detention and a few of the other features that we had discussed with the board. The fire district was okay with our suggestions. The board authorized them to go forward with us in the intergovernmental agreement. So I'm busy preparing a draft. They would like to try and approve it before their meeting on June 19th. I also have received a draft purchase agreement from Federal Life, and they're waiting for my comments on that. At the last board meeting, I suggested that the annual joint review board meeting might be in June, but given the timing with the audit and the comptroller's decision that we should really have the audit finalized and the TIF report into the audit to the comptroller's office before we have a joint review board meeting, Tony and I decided that it made more sense to just schedule it in July. We'll be done with everything at that point. So I think some of you, I'd said we might try and schedule it in June. I'm taking that back and saying it'll probably be in July. So that's my report.
Are there any questions? Trustee Hollander, do you want to just move over
Must be
here?
my night tonight. If we're going to be voting on authorizing a purchase, I want to make certain that there has been no significant comments by Meadow Lake or any other surrounding residents. To my knowledge, there hasn't been. I haven't heard of any, but I want to at least make certain that they have an opportunity to make any comments at the time we vote. And again, I haven't heard any. Maybe someone else has. But if
I've heard nothing.
Okay.
I've had some positive reactions, but
right, I haven't heard any negatives.
yeah.
But
Has
all right.
anybody? Nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Clayton, please.
Any update at all on Walters Kluwer?
No,
Crickets.
actually, we've
Nothing.
not heard a word.
Nothing. Okay. We'll talk about that. Okay.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Oh, Trustee Dickin, please.
I'm wondering if maybe we should set up a dedicated page on the website the same way we did when the Federal Life was in question last time, where we updated with the most recent updates that are made at Board of Trustees meetings, any documents,
Okay.
just to make sure we're as transparent as possible.
Noted. Are there any other comments for our attorney? Okay. Our village engineer isn't with us tonight. Our village ecologist isn't with us tonight. The Plan Commission report, please. Chairman Bradkoff.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. I have nothing to report except, yeah, what a surprise, except we will meet again on June the 6th.
Delightful. Are there any questions for our chairman? Thank you very much. Next, Zoning Board of Appeals report, please. Chairman Creditor. Check the light.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Who had purchased a property, the property at, let me see if I can get the address for you, 2750 Forest Glen Trail. That property is wooded from one side to the other, completely wooded. And they want to build a house. And according to our woodland protection ordinance, they are entitled to remove 20% of the trees unless there is a hardship in building, in which case they can request another 5%. And they came before the ZBA to request an additional 5%, saying that they have downsized the size of the house they're building, but they want some yard area to play with their kids. And if they don't get the additional 5%, there will not be such an area. I read the goals of the Woodland Protection Ordinance, because very frankly, I strongly believe that ordinances are ordinances and they're there for a reason. However, the other members of the ZBA voted to approve the additional 5% that will be coming before the board at the next meeting, I believe. There were we only had 4 people at that meeting, myself and 3 others. The 3 others voted in favor of granting the 5%. I voted in opposition because I did not perceive the lack of a play area outside of the house as being a hardship, that it was so strong that it would allow for the addition of the additional 5%. Unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned, the ultimate decision of the ZBA was to allow the 5%.
Are there any questions for our chairman? Trustee Jamerson, please.
Do we know how big the lot is? Is it
I don't have the exact measurements. It's about an acre lot.
about an
It's-
acre?
If I may,
Director
it's
Witt.
it's slightly over 40,000 square feet.
Okay.
I think it's 40,411 if I remember right.
So they're looking for 10,000 square feet of,
Trees to be removed, and it is solidly treed, the entire lot.
Trustee Hollander, did you?
That was my exact question.
That
Is
was
how
your
big is the
question.
lot? Yeah.
and
Okay.
did they do a tree survey yet?
Um,
So we know what kind of trees they would be tearing down?
yeah,
Or I shouldn't say tear down, taking out.
they did, and they're primarily protected trees.
Okay, that's what I figured. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Trustee
I
Dickon,
have a
please.
comment question. So if I'm not mistaken, the 20% applies to a property when there's already a house
No.
present with a driveway? No?
No, the 20% is for a lot that's not been built upon.
Okay.
And the 5% is an additional, which is allowed in the ordinance only if the 20% presents a hardship
So
in
if you're
building on that lot.
purchasing a property that has a house and you'd like to make modifications to remove woodlands, is it still 20% or is it a smaller?
No, you can't take an additional 20. I don't know what the exact figures are, but it's not an additional 20%.
Director Witt, would you like to?
Okay, some years back, GHA actually, Steve Zimmerman, our village ecologist, worked with GHA in establishing how much protected woodland area there is on each property within the village. So each property has a chart which indicates essentially square footage, et cetera, and they keep track of any removal through the years. So someone might buy a property that has never had woodlands removed. They would be allowed to take up to 20% in accordance with the ordinance. However, some properties may have taken something originally to do, maybe add a garage or something else on there, and that removal is tracked and recorded. And every time a new development occurs on a site, those numbers are looked at to ensure that over the life of our tracking, that the total removed area does not exceed 20% of what it was at the baseline.
No, I understand that, but this goes back 8 years, right? That's approximately how long
Give
Steve
or
has
take.
been with the village, right? So prior to Steve, there has not been a tracking system and people kind of really did whatever they wanted with their properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Trustee Jamerson, please.
There was a tracking system,
Okay.
but prior to, well, I shouldn't say that. There was a survey done by Urban Forest Management
When they did the flyover.
way in the
right?
back. No.
No.
Steve Zimmerman did the flyover with the LiDAR, which gives us what we have today. But when I first joined the board, Urban Forest Management had done some kind of a survey, but it wasn't very complete / accurate. And so that's why we did the survey that we did with Steve Zimmerman and the LiDAR, which gave us exactly, pretty much, I mean, not exactly, but much closer to what we have now. So there was some mapping done, but it wasn't anywhere near as accurate as it is now.
Understood. Thank you.
Trustee Hollander, please.
I'm sure I could look this up and maybe Bruce can help. Is there a specific definition of what hardship means for the BZA or for us to consider? Are there defined examples or how one would define a hardship?
There's standards that are in the village code,
Yeah.
and Director Wood is going to be working on summarizing the ZBA report that'll come to the board before you are
All right, so
expected to
that'll have
vote.
that in there.
I hope
Good.
so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for our chair right now? Thank you for your report. Okay, moving on. Police report, Chief.
The police activity for the year is in your packets. Additionally, I just want to report that we did put our body-worn cameras into service. All the officers are trained and they're working flawlessly. And then just a few days ago, we installed the new dash cam that are made by the same company, Axon, that sync with the body cams. And we've trained everybody in those, and those are also working fine, and the whole project went down without a hitch. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief? Other than why we're not getting a station dog, but that's another issue. We had some really lovely dogs at the play area from orphans, and a couple of the officers felt a particular bond with Sheldon. So
Because
So
I'm
it came
going
up.
to be the one who's going to end up cleaning up after them and feeding them and taking them for walks. That's why.
I know. Thank you. We'll have a canine. Yeah, Sheldon. Yeah, more like a comfort dog, not really he's not a killer. Okay. Are there any questions for Chief? Thank you very much, and thank you for your work. Fire District, Chief Kruger is not with us, but we've had a good report from the Fire District on the letter of intent. I have no comments for this evening. New business. First on the list is approval of a renewal of an agreement with the State of Illinois Department of Central Management Services Local Government Health Plan. Director Vasquez, please.
Thank you, Mayor. For some background, the Village health, dental, and vision insurance plans for our employees are provided through the State of Illinois Local Government Health Plan from their Department of Central Management Services. Our agreement with CMS is on a 2-year cycle, with our current agreement set to expire on July 1st of 2024. The Village must complete the renewal agreement for the next 2-year cycle by June 25th of this year. Otherwise, our insurance coverage would be terminated. The following are items of note for the renewal agreement. So Appendix A, which is also attached, lists the monthly premium prices for the first year of the agreement, which covers the period from July 1st of 24 through June 30th of 2025. 6 of the 9 health plan options available saw price reductions in monthly premiums. We made sure to communicate these new rates with our staff so that they would have time to incorporate those price changes when deciding on what they wanted to do during the open enrollment period. Again, a reminder, dental and vision coverage are included as part of the premiums that are as part of Appendix A. And then again, the agreement gives the Village the ability to leave the plan with a 60-day notice, which is consistent with prior renewals of this same plan that we've had in place. This is noteworthy in the event the Village identifies a more favorable plan from another source down the road as we do evaluations. So the recommendation from staff is to approve the renewal agreement with the State of Illinois Department of Central Management Services Local Government Health Plan, which again would cover a period from July 1, 24 through June 30th, 2026.
Trustee Hollander?
I'm not suggesting we do this, but it's my impression that we really don't go out for alternative bids. We generally just accept what the state has already contracted.
So my understanding on the history before I came to the Village is that there was a period of time where someone, kind of a broker, did help look at alternatives. I don't know the details of those, but this was seen as a more favorable plan. There is another alternate plan that I know of that I've started the early stages of reviewing to see if that could potentially be more favorable in costs and coverage. And again, this agreement before you keeps our insurance in place, but it does have the 60-day period in case I do find something that looks like it could be more favorable for us.
But in general, we generally accept this. I'm not against it, but that's generally the default. Is that correct?
In general, yes.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
So in Appendix A, there's 9, looks like 9 different plans that are all at different price points, correct?
Yes, there's,
So do we pick one of those for all the staff, or does the staff get to pick?
staff can pick. So there, for instance, there's I think 3 different HMOs. So if a staff member preferred an HMO, they could choose one of those 3 options, understand that there's different prices in place for those 3 options.
Okay. I would, well, that's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
It just seems, I mean, we're paying the freight. So if an employee wanted to pick the most expensive plan, we would be paying for that employee to do that. And then if a different employee picked a different plan, we'd be paying less. I mean, it just seems odd to me that we don't have one plan for all the employees.
These are the plans that the state program makes available for us.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying, why don't we say everybody has to be on the LC plan or the HMO Illinois plan or whatever it is that we want? I mean, because there's quite a difference between, if you look at the family, one dependent, no Medicare, and it goes all the way from $3,000 down to $1,800. And I'm not saying we should go with the $1,800 plan because I don't know anything about it, but I'm just saying it seems odd that we would allow our employees to pick and choose plans. That's only a comment. I'm not opposed to whatever it takes to do our insurance, and I don't know what we tell our employees when we hire them, other than that we're covering their insurance. But
When a new hire is brought on that's eligible for the health insurance, they are given the packet of information that the state provides, which includes the variety of plans that are available.
But we don't have to stick with that. To Trustee Hollander's point, we could, if we wanted to,
So
come back and say, we're going to go with the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan for everybody. Because what you get in your employment package may or may not be what is forever happens.
The state probably is grouping people together.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
So
that
if
these
you pick
rates.
the state has alternatives.
Yeah, no, I
Or
get
if
it.
we wanted to say just pick Blue Cross, perhaps we would have to have a separate agreement.
No,
with Blue Cross.
believe me, I
Maybe that's-
understand.
Yeah.
I understand the insurance.
Chief might have Chief, do you want to add to that?
So basically, there's several different plans, but there's basically 3 types. One type is what most people would call a PPO, which is more expensive. But the other types are the HMO, which I think everybody's familiar with, which gives you more coverage and it's less for us, but you're locked into the doctors that you need to go to. The other plan is an OAP, and there's 3 options for those. And the OAP and the HMOs are less expensive than the PPOs. But with the OAP, which is what pretty much most of us are on, one of the OAPs, which are not that expensive, the OAPs are more or less a hybrid between the HMO and the more expensive PPO, because if all your doctors and hospitals are tier 1, which pretty much everybody around here is, you get the same benefit as the HMO, and you don't have to go through all the hoops of going to their doctor to your main doctor in order to be sent to a specialist. So most of us are I think all of us are either on an HMO or on the OAP. But I think most companies do make a PPO type plan available. That's pretty standard. So I think we're pretty much offering what a lot of other municipalities and a lot of companies are offering.
Yeah.
Trustee Smith, do you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. So, I would say, Trustee Jamerson, it's certainly not uncommon to offer more than one health plan option to employees. I would say that's probably more common than less common. The one thing that's interesting about the way the Village of Riverwoods runs the benefit plans is it's free regardless of choice. One of the ways that some employers, let me restate that, some employers may choose to try and get people to consider the cost of different plans is to say, okay, we'll fund this plan. Anything above that is kind of out of pocket. So the difference, not the total, just the difference. And that's sometimes called flex funding. There's lots of different terms for that. But so I would say that, offering an HMO and a PPO is certainly not uncommon, or an HMO type plan. There's a few options here that are identified, like the Health Alliance plan. That's really a Central Illinois plan. So these are plans that are offered across the state. And that plan, quite honestly, doesn't probably get any traction here in the Chicago area, because it's part of Carle Clinic, stuff like that. So it's all Central Illinois, Bloomington, Normal, Peoria, that area. So I think what we're talking about is, my opinion would be is we renew, and then, if I can be of any assistance to you as you're looking at other health plan options. My background is all health benefits consulting. I'm happy to help. The thing might be is because of accumulators, you don't think so much about from 60 days from 7/1, but maybe think about a strategy for next year. That'd be my recommendation to you, because accumulators, deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, those are just problematic. They reset. And you don't really want to get somebody 2 months in, then have it reset, and they have to meet the deductible again. I get that. Does that make sense? Any questions or comments?
Trustee Hollander, please.
I think Trustee Jamerson's point would be fixed if the village was participating at a fixed level. Then the individual would be able to choose whatever level plan they wanted if they were willing to pay the extra cost. What Trustee Jamerson is concerned about is that the village is not at a fixed level. It's dependent upon what the individual chooses, over which we have little control. And if we want to control that, then the idea is to make the village participation the same for everyone, and anyone then can choose based on what they're willing to spend. That's generally been my experience in the field with companies, that they'll have a fixed participation, which we don't have apparently. And that's maybe something we should consider for the next go around, which then removes the problem of someone choosing a more expensive plan.
If I can just make one last comment.
Sure, absolutely.
We have how many employees? I mean,
we have, I think, about 15 that are eligible.
Oh, that's right. I always forget about the police department. Sorry, Bruce. I always think about the people in this building. I never think about the people in the police department. So, okay, never mind.
Just another point, though. When I started here, it was 15 years ago, but time flies, I know. But I don't think there was an understanding by the people in the office here at the time of the options we had, and they were only offering the most expensive plan, the PPO. And then when I got here, I looked at the booklet and said, some of these other plans, I think the other employees might prefer, and it'll actually save the village some money. And once they understood that, then they offered all of the plans. So that's how we started offering all of the plans instead of just the most expensive plan.
Are there any other questions? May I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Second item, approval of the appointment of David Schimberg to the Zoning Board of Appeals. You have a short bio from Mr. Schimberg, and I think he might be known to most of you. I would appreciate a motion for approval of this appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I need a roll call. No. Oh, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We're still one short, and we're working on it. We're trying, Sherry. Okay, thank you very much for that, by the way, and I will inform Mr. Schimberg. Approval of an ordinance amending the number of Class K liquor licenses. If I might ask our village attorney to lead us quickly through that.
I see a typo before I even start. It's so disheartening, but this is on page 60 of the packet. The genesis of this ordinance is that we think we found a way to accommodate video gaming terminals in the Brunch Factory. There's another ordinance later in the agenda which adjusts the special use for Colonial Court so that video gaming would be allowed. That takes care of the zoning, but it doesn't take care of the fact that you have to have a special liquor license to operate a video gaming terminal. In the village, we only have one of those licenses. It's a Class K license. That one we are intending to be used by Baby Vegas. Apparently there has been some continuing work there at the shops, so we think they are still pursuing that. So although it's out of order, but because this is new business, this ordinance would increase the number of Class K licenses from 1 to 2. In the typo in section 1 of the ordinance, it should say a maximum number of 2, and then the numeral should be 2 as well as the letters. And this would then give the village the ability to issue a separate Class K license to the Brunch Factory, assuming that the other matters are approved later. And so we would need a motion to waive first reading and then a motion for adoption if the board decides to go
Motion to
forward.
waive first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You need a roll call on it. Do you need a roll call?
All on,
No, no.
to waive the
No,
first-
no, go ahead.
I was
Sorry,
right.
you're right.
I was right.
Okay.
May I have a motion to approve the ordinance amending the number of Class K liquor licenses?
I make a motion to approve it with the correction of the 2 in parentheses.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Is there any discussion? Trustee Hollander, please.
I want to remind the board that when we had the Baby Vegas discussion a while ago, one of the concerns we had as a village was to allow one video gaming license and let the village have an opportunity to see what the experience was and whether or not our concerns would be valid or not, because it was something new. We weren't, for various reasons, we were concerned about many issues. Now, we're accepting a second one without ever having had the experience of knowing what happened with the first one. I'm not necessarily saying we shouldn't do it, but I want to remind the board that that was a very clear concern, that we were going to do one and then see what happened before we did a second.
Trustee Clayton, please.
I guess my view on that is that we don't know if Baby Vegas is ever going to happen. And so this would be our first experience.
Trustee Smith.
And we always have the ability, I'm asking this as a question, do we always have the ability to pull
Yes.
this back if we want to?
We just don't issue the license.
The license has to be reissued annually. So if we issue a video gaming terminal license coming up, then it's valid for the duration of the license period unless they violate the terms of the license.
So kind of getting back to Trustee Hollander's concern or remembering and reminding us of the process and the concerns. So then we could theoretically have 2 for a year, but it's always up to the Board of Trustees to either choose to renew or not renew.
I think that's right, and especially in this instance, because this use requires a separate liquor license, and the Board of Trustees has the authority to reduce the number of liquor licenses. And it's not subject to the same scrutiny as, say, a zoning decision.
Got it.
If I can add a point of information, I have not signed and renewed the liquor license for Baby Vegas for this year.
So far.
Yeah, unless there was some objective event that occurred that would make us question renewing a license, I would not want to set the precedent of pulling a license like that unless something happened. I mean, I think that's wrong.
Really no
to allow a
business.
business to go in and then with the idea that we may pull it a year later without any reason that we didn't want to do 2 instead of 1. And I wasn't saying we shouldn't do this one. I was just saying there was a concern on the board. We wanted to have that experience with the first license, and I understand that it's been a delay on their part more than on ours.
I did not see a business to issue a license to. So there was no application and no signature on the license for either the business license or the liquor license for this year. Probably should have been true last year as well, but, you know.
Did we give Baby Vegas the license already?
No.
They were issued a license and they paid for a license and they never used it. And so this year, we did not renew.
So
And
why
they
can't,
didn't come
why
in.
can't we leave it at 1?
Right.
Why can't we leave it at 1?
I-
And if they want to, when they're ready to come in, we can make the change to 2 at that time.
Because I was sensitive to the point that you were making. They have been spending money at the shops, readying it for occupancy. Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's an
Item,
ordinance, and you'll give us the ordinance number at some point?
oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, the number is 24-05-05.
Lovely. Thank you.
Item D on the agenda is discussion and approval of a sustainability task force with Lori Brightcoff and Julie Vivaro as co-chairs. I went over the agenda with Trustee Eastman, who called me to say that he was not able to be here tonight. And as a courtesy, we have always asked the trustees if there was anything on the agenda that they wish to participate in, and he wishes to participate in this discussion. Therefore, we're going to put this over to the next meeting. So moving on to old business, approval of an amendment to the special use ordinance governing Colonial Court Shopping Center to authorize a licensed establishment within a standalone restaurant for video gaming terminals. May I ask our attorney to lead us through that, please?
This would be page 62 in the packet. The zoning for Colonial Court is a bit unusual in the village. It was approved by a special use ordinance originally adopted in 1979. That ordinance listed a number of uses that could be pursued at Colonial Court. And then if a different use came along that wasn't in the original list, the village amended the ordinance. So if you look in one of the whereas clauses, you'll see it was amended in 1987 and 1989, again, 1993, 1994, it goes on. It's a lot of amendments, each time adding another specific use. The last use that we added was for a cannabis wellness store. I forgot exactly what the terminology was, but do we have such a store there in the? It wasn't, it's left, but that was use number 51. And I'm just sort of explaining why if you turn to page 63 in the packet, you'll see section 2 of the ordinance says section 1 of the special use ordinance is amended by adding subparagraph 52. So there are 51 preceding sections. Not all of them are uses. Some of them go on in detail about signage or something else. So the key operative language here is what is it that the amendment would allow? It would allow a licensed establishment, which is defined in the Video Gaming Act, and that's essentially an establishment that has video gaming terminals. It says that it has to be, the licensed establishment has to be operated in a restaurant. That's not a requirement of state law. Baby Vegas, for example, would not be located in a restaurant. It would be, and it's just a retail space. So this particular amendment, as it's suggested for Colonial Court, would only allow a licensed establishment in a standalone restaurant, the only one of which is the Brunch Factory at this moment at Colonial Court. It goes on to say that the use will be governed by all limitations specified in the liquor, video gaming, and/or terminal operator licenses issued for such establishment. In our other parts of our code where we authorize video gaming establishments, it's only after they've received the requisite liquor license, video gaming license. That's one for each video machine. So if they have 6, there's 6 licenses. And then the terminal operator license is the company that actually, under state law, operates the machines. And it goes on to say that this establishment may include, this approval may include restrictions to separate the video gaming terminals from restaurant seating, since that was one of the issues that we dealt with, and adjusting the number of video gaming terminals and/or restaurant seating in accordance with the required off-street parking as determined by the zoning official. That would be Director Witt. That gives the director the option of making an adjustment if one becomes necessary. I'll let Steve speak to that right now. I think the current inclination is that none is needed. But we put this language in case, given the kind of evolution with widening of Deerfield Road and the loss of parking spaces and everything else, something else were to emerge and he needed to suggest some kind of trade-off or restriction. I would note for the board that a decision by the zoning official is also appealable to the ZBA and ultimately to the village board. So it's not simply what that one individual says, but normally speaking, he would be the first stop. So that's the intent and purpose of the ordinance. And it comes after a hearing before the Plan Commission, which was noticed and published and sent out to everyone. I think that was back in November, if I'm remembering correctly.
So may I have a motion to waive first reading, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Trustee Hollander.
Does the parking consideration apply to Baby Vegas or only now to the restaurant?
Only to the restaurant because Baby Vegas is subject to a different set of parking count. Yeah,
A different set of,
a parking count because the parking for shops was a separate computation than the parking for Colonial Court. So the issue with Colonial Court is given the anticipated loss of parking spaces and what the original site plan showed, there is possibly a shortfall.
I was just concerned that that we were applying the same standard to both and not just the one.
No, the zoning for shops is under a separate category.
Great.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
Attorney Huvard mentioned that there's 52 items under Section 2, and some of them have to do with signs. They have been in violation of our sign ordinance and that particular special use for some time because, and just recently when they went to PMs, they put a sign on top of the for lease sign that the whoever it is, Avalon or whoever is in charge of the center. They've kind of flaunted, the owners of that restaurant in the past have flaunted that particular part of that special ordinance on many occasions. So if we allow this, I would like to make sure that we correct the issues with the signage in Colonial Court, in particular for the brunch factory, because it just seems to be getting out of hand. And then I think we probably need to review our sign ordinance in general, because I think that it's I don't know. I just think we need to review that. I know Director Witt has a lot of stuff on his plate right now, so I don't want to push it on his plate right now, but.
We'll go on the list.
Yeah. Number 53.
Okay.
104. Director Witt, would you like to maybe clarify that a bit for us?
Certainly. The signage that's out at the brunch factory is not something that was just done single-handedly by the owner of that company. They did come in and had a conversation with both the mayor and myself, and we've been in constant contact with that owner at least once a week for the last couple of months. To respond in general to your question, to your comment to start with, we would probably rip the signs off of every one of those entities at Colonial Court and shops if we were to fully enforce the sign code. So we're trying to make some rhyme or reason moving forward. And we have done that particularly with the fitness center to make sure that it's compliant, even though there's some things that are done in other areas that shouldn't be in accordance with the special use permit that is related to the signage. With regard to the opening for the evening hours, the brunch factory in itself has got several sign violations in itself. The pancake on the side of the building is not allowed. It's been there since before my time. To come in and all of a sudden say, okay, take this down, take that down. They did put a banner at the canopy, which is permitted, and it's in accordance with the sign ordinance. They did put this piece on that sign that's in the ground. Okay, there are issues with regard to how many ground signs you can have, but ultimately when Deerfield Road is expanded, it goes away. So in the interim, looking at trying to save a business, which is a key element in that particular shopping center. They didn't see that as an issue compared to what's already there. It wasn't adding to the issue. It was just replacing signage that was already there before my time. So almost like grandfathering it in without officially saying that, but it really doesn't have any more detrimental effect than what was already there.
Okay. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's fine. I'm not asking you to go through and change every sign in Colonial Court and the Shops of Riverwoods. I just, you're welcome. Yeah, take that off your list. That's fine. If as long as I didn't realize that they had previous communication with you, and I certainly don't want to hurt any business, especially one in that shopping center. But I just, okay.
Well, point well taken.
Remove my comments.
Point well taken. Are there any other questions or comments on this?
Just a quick
Trustee
comment
Smith, please.
is, if we have ordinances, they should be enforced. And if we're not going to enforce them, then why bother having them? So I think Director Witt, not to add to your workload, but that should be part of ongoing conversations with that company, that entity, to say, you're out of compliance, you need to fix it.
Yeah.
As we do have opportunity to bring the shopping center and each of the individual stores into compliance, say something is wrong with the sign, it has to be repaired or whatever, we would certainly be looking at that. And I think the comment that I did make is that as tenancies change, the rules and regulations are being enforced, even though I get an awful lot, and particularly with the fitness center, why do I have to do something because they didn't and they didn't? He actually went door to door and asked, are you being forced to do X, Y, Z? And literally everything going on. But my job is to make sure that there's some level of compliance, and we are over time trying to get the shopping center into compliance with the code.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Hollander?
Isn't there a special sign committee for that particular location in our village? Or has that been delegated to some other entity?
Never heard.
I'm sorry to complicate your life, Bruce, but
Steve just had.
Actually,
So
yes.
I can answer that. Yes, there is. There is an entity called the Sign Board of Appeals, and you're looking at the chair over there waving her hand. The Zoning Board of Appeals is actually acting as that committee, and they already have had signage at the Med Spa building come in front of them, which they rejected because for many good reasons, because of the size and placement. And we're currently going back and forth to trying to get something compliant to bring back to them for formal approval. So yes, there is that entity, and yes, it is already in play.
it was delegated really then.
It's
I
in
mean, that
the
normally wouldn't come under the zoning, but we delegated that responsibility to them, which is fine, but
It so happens that in this ordinance for Colonial Court, going back many years, someone before me conceived of the idea that if there was some issue about signage at Colonial Court, it would be resolved in this fashion. So it's written into their special use. It doesn't apply anywhere else in the village.
right.
It's just,
So we did delegate it to the ZBA,
well,
which is fine. I just,
In a circular.
it actually specified who the committee was, and it included members of the ZBA.
I think as Director Witt weaves through our code, there may well in the future be a number of clarifications and changes, but we have what we have, and he's doing a great job with what we got. So are there any further comments or suggestions or changes? I need a motion for a second reading
So
and
moved.
adoption.
Second.
May I have a, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Jamerson?
Oh, fine, start with me. Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
aye.
Trustee Dickin?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion to approve ordinance number 24-05-06 carries.
Thank you. And I know the owner of the Brunch Factory thanks you. Okay, next item of business, visitors wishing to address the board. Do we have anyone who wishes to address us this evening? Randy, you want to step over there and yeah, identify yourself, I guess. What?
Randy Yaffe, 7 Foxtail Court in Meadow Lake. I just have a question in regard, we were talking about the fire station. The initial response, at least from the residents, is positive. But when can I convey to them when, and I know this isn't going to be for a while because I guess this is going to happen until Deerfield Road is built. Is that how I understand it?
Well, there's different parts of the project. One is to acquire the property. One is to demolish the Federal Life building. Another component is to design stormwater improvements that reflect the new improvements and not the old townhome site development. And there's a possibility that the village would do grading work on the property in 2025, a year from now. When the fire station actually does its building is a different decision. They have a complex calculus about where is their response time going to be most impacted, how long is their building going to take, at what stage will their building be when we are able to turn over the site to them. So all of that is so preliminary at this point, they don't really know. So they may try, depending on how fast we get our work done, they may try to get in the tail end of 2025, or at that point, depending on what the county's doing, they may throw their hands up and say, we're better off waiting until the county is done. So that's really their decision to make, and I'm sure that they will balance as many competing interests and make the best judgment they can, for the public.
I just want to make sure so I can convey to the residents and say, if you have a concern about noise, light, or anything like that, at least they can just address the committee at that time when you have a plan.
Yeah, I think there was a comment about public, conveying things to the public and how we might do that. The idea of when we take comments from the public, the idea of the newsletter is here, if we can, do that through that. I don't know that there's a particular public hearing, and or perhaps we set aside a time in a meeting and say, here's when we're going to be discussing it.
The district is they're going to be our partners in this. I mean, in a collaborative sense, as two different governmental agencies. They're very sensitive to the understanding that people don't want to be unduly impacted by noise and light. They're working with their designers into how they position the building, how the equipment comes in and out. They also have to work with Lake County. They have to see how they can safely get on and off Deerfield Road. But there's going to be a significant distance and buffering between the building and Meadow Lake. And the chief, I think, said here in one of his presentations to us, they use their sirens far less than they used to. They don't turn them on as soon as they leave the building.
Well, he said the same thing to me, that the protocol was not to use it. I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence on behalf of the community, if they wanted to come and just express themselves. And I just thought maybe it might be too premature right now because we're not even close.
Well, there will be on the agenda at some point, there will be a formal purchase agreement with Federal Life to vote on, and there will be an agreement with the fire district to vote on, which, for those meetings, the board will have to be given materials and, term sheets and explanation of what they're voting on. So that'll also be made available to the public.
Okay, I
We'll
appreciate it.
continue to keep that on the agenda too. So you'll see that there'll be a status update then on every agenda.
Right, perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Trustee Jamerson.
Just to tack onto that, I think, when we built this building, we had several public hearings, and I'm guessing the fire district may have to go through the same process with their building. So maybe that would be something you could look at as they were doing their process as well. It's out of our hands because we're not building the building for them. So just a thought.
Is anybody else wishing to address the board this evening?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Laura Cook. My husband and I recently purchased 2750 Forest Glen Trail. and we are very excited to move to Riverwoods. We were told that our variance application was not being discussed tonight. We have done months of work with Steve Witt and the village consultants to minimize the environmental impact of our future build. And we have spent a lot of money to reach this very point. We were very happy that the zoning board was in favor of granting us the 25% variance. So my husband Alex and I will be back on June 4th to explain the many challenges of building on this 0.93 acre vacant property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, there's no reason to go into executive session this evening. And our next time and date for our next meeting is after our village attorney's birthday, which is tomorrow. And I wish him a very healthy and happy year ahead, safe year ahead. So our next date and time is June 4th at 7:30 right here. Happy birthday, Bruce. Oh, Trustee Jamerson.
Can I just make one public comment? There's been a lot of chatter on social media about representatives coming to people's front doors saying they're with ComEd and trying to get them to change their energy supplier. And I know that the villages, we've had an aggregation program for several years. And I know Director Witt's working on getting the renewal information on that. But I think it's important, and maybe we can put it in the newsletter. ComEd will never come to your door, ever, to ask you to do anything with your bill. They will not do that. So if someone shows up at your door, first of all, we have a solicitor's ordinance that requires them to get permits from the police station. And second of all, they won't ask, ComEd will just not come to your door, and they will not call you on the phone either to ask you to change your energy supplier. So don't give them any information. Don't give them your bill, your name, anything other than that, because they can, if they have a very small amount of information, they can change your energy supplier and your rates could triple. So I think it's important that maybe we can put something in the newsletter.
We absolutely will. Yes, thank you for that. We absolutely will. And we'll note the non-solicitation.
Did they get a permit?
No, this actually wasn't in Riverwoods. It was in Buffalo Grove. But they're college students that zip around, and that's their job, is to try and get you to switch your electricity. And they tell you they're from ComEd when in fact they're not. So
they need a different job.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, motion to adjourn. I forgot.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good night.
Just a little shout out.
Like almost like